I became a full-time producer at 23 with 120 million streams, 9 top 50 records, and I made my first 100K producing. In this video, I'm going to share 9 important lessons I wish I knew when I was starting out. Now, lesson 1, it's harder and longer than you think. Pause on that, but what I mean by that is that it takes longer than you expect, and it's going to be harder than you actually want it to be. That is why most people quit. I literally lived in a studio for 1 year, working every single day while working my 9 to 5. So what I would do is that I would go to the studio in the afternoon after I quit my job. I went to the studio. Luckily, they had a shower, they had stuff like that there, and I would just sleep on the couch. And I did that for 1 year because I had a limited amount of time due to me working a 9 to 5. So because of that, I needed to put all of my time and attention towards making music. So I would get to the studio in the afternoon, have people come in, do sessions, make beats, then sleep in the studio, wake up the next day, get to my job, and then repeat. And before that, I had been grinding for 3 years. So in total, it's 4 years, but it was 1 year where I really went all in and really dedicated myself. And at the beginning of that year, I felt like, okay, if I really do this and I go this hard, it shouldn't have to take me 1 year. It should take a couple of months. It did not take a couple of months. It was a brutal year of just grinding and staying in the game. And I was so close to quitting near the end of that year. But that's actually when I had my first record, this one right here, that got on the chart. And that taught me that winning occurs when you stay in the game, even when nothing happens. Now, lesson 2 is that discipline comes before opportunity. So all results require consistency, and consistency requires discipline. A 9 to 5 isn't the problem. Wasting time outside of your 9 to 5, that's the big problem. Because we all have the same 24 hours, and I hear a lot of times, I hear this argument, and I've said it myself, that we don't have enough time to make a career in music because we're working a 9 to 5. But it's all backwards, because how else are you supposed to quit that 9 to 5 if you can make it happen while you have a 9 to 5? The reason I at least felt like I didn't have enough time was because I was just wasting my time outside of music. So ruthlessly cut out anything that isn't music. And I'm talking ruthlessly. Like if you have to cut out cooking food, then do that. If you spend way too much, I don't know, cleaning your apartment, I'm serious, cut it out. Or to the very least, because when I was in this situation, I obviously couldn't afford to order food all the time or have a cleaner, but at least be organized with it. Do your best to not like make a mess in the apartment. Do your best to do fast and easy meals. Maybe you meal prep 1 day of the week, so you spend 3 hours, but you get 7 days of meals worth from it. It's things like that. Also, what you're doing outside, like are you spending a lot of time with your friends? Maybe you say to them like, hey, I'm gonna lock in now. You're not gonna see much of me for a while. Maybe you lose some friends, but that's a price you might have to pay because you want to do something extraordinary. Most people never make a career with music work. Most people never do that, which means that you can't expect to be doing the same exact things as everybody else and get a different kind of outcome than everybody else. So don't get in this trap of being limited by your 9 to 5. Just cut out anything that isn't music and you'll have a whole lot of time outside of your 9 to 5, which you can use to get out of your 9 to 5. And you could say that discipline is a kind of focus, right? Like you're so dialed, you're so focused that you only do a few things. That's actually lesson 3, which is that focus beats talent. This thing that we're doing is already difficult and hard enough. Like making a career in music is super hard. And that's why it's so important to not get distracted and pursue multiple lanes at once. I've done this myself, and I speak to countless of people who are always trying to do this, where they'll do type beats, then they'll try to get placements, then they'll try to do high ticket beat sales, low ticket beat sales, sync opportunities, and then somebody tries to throw in sample packs on top of that. What happens is that you're pursuing all of these different lanes that don't really help each other. Some of them can feed each other, but most of them don't. And the hope is that you'll develop some kind of multiple income stream. Like I've done this mistake myself, but you won't develop multiple income streams because you're so spread thin and so distracted trying to make every single damn thing work while you're working a 9 to 5 with limited amount of time. And because of that, you make progress in none, and none of them ever lives up to their full potential. The moment I started actually making money with music was when I picked one lane and stuck to it. I picked getting placements and making songs with artists. That's what I did. But when I put all my time and energy and focus on that one thing, I got exponential returns for it. So yeah, by sticking to one lane, you create momentum and a snowball effect of good things happening. By the way, if you want more lessons like this and to learn more about making music your full-time career, then I recommend checking out my free community. People are in here getting wins It's a good vibe overall. We're collaborating, we're learning from each other. I'm also doing a free feedback call every week to help you improve and stay on top of things. So if you want more help than just the YouTube videos, the link's in the description to join that. And lesson number 4 is that you want to get good first. So skill is the foundation of all of this. If you're like really whack, you won't be able to make producing your career. However, you don't just get good in the beginning, but you keep getting good and better all the time. But what I found here is that volume is what really creates skill. And volume just means that you're doing a lot of something. Like for example, if you make beats, you make a lot of beats. If you're sending outreaches, you send a lot of outreaches. Because what volume does is that it gives you more feedback loops. Because every time you make a beat, you're going to be giving yourself feedback. You will avoid the bad things and do more of the good things. Now the more tactical, like 2.0 version of that is that you make a lot and then you study what it is that actually works. So for example, let's say you work with an artist, you guys make 10 songs, 2 of them performed really well. They have 10 million streams plus. The rest have like 300 or 400. Then you look at the patterns of those 2 successful songs and you do more of that. So you make more beats like that, or he writes his lyrics in that way, or you arrange it that way. Like you just look at whatever it was that worked, you do more of that. Then you look at whatever you guys did in those songs that didn't perform and you do less of it. Perhaps you avoid those types of beats or whatever it was that quote unquote went wrong there. So basically, make a lot, study what works, cut what doesn't work, then do more of what worked. So then you just do more of that and you keep iterating. And this applies to beats, this applies to outreach messages, this applies to basically every single thing. And when you follow this process repeatedly, you'll get pretty damn good at whatever it is that you want to do. But just being good in a saturated market like music isn't enough. And that's actually what lesson 5 covers, which is that you're not valuable yet. I used to think that if I got good at making beats, then I had some kind of value because I'd gone through the effort of actually getting good and I have good sounding beats and their quality or whatever. But the problem is that there's a lot of good producers and making good beats isn't rare. And since it's not rare, it's not valuable. Now your value as a producer comes from your proof. So credits matter and numbers speak louder than opinions. And a really good point that showcases this is that the first time I was approached by an A&R from Sony wasn't when I was making good music or I even sent stuff to them. No, it was when I already had a record on the chart. And more specifically, it was actually this one. That's when people from labels started approaching me because numbers speak louder than opinions, because music is subjective. And an opinion is always going to be an opinion. However, what's not is numbers. And I know that might sound harsh or that might not sound like the most creative thing ever in the world. That's just the game that this is. And when you take something as creative and subjective as music and you turn it into a business, you need some kind of anchor. And numbers are that anchor. Your credits matter a lot and that is what's going to determine your value. Another story I have to this is that I had an artist, I played him a couple beats. He said no to all of the beats. Then I went on, I made all of these records. We had another session again. I played him some of the same beats, but only this time they were amazing. Even when it comes to getting your beats placed with artists, your credits matter so much because it changes the perception of you and the music that you make. And that's why building your proof and getting these credits are so important. And that's why lesson 6 is so valuable, which is that you build value by giving. When you have no value, meaning you don't have any credits, you have basically no leverage. And this is just my opinion and from my experience. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but in my experience, working for free in the beginning is beneficial because it allows you to gain leverage. So you work for free in order to get better connections, bigger songs, or experience that you don't already have. And that's always been my framework for when working for free or when not working for free. So for example, let's say I'm just starting out. I have nobody that I've ever worked with or no experience whatsoever. Then just working with about anybody will be beneficial for me because it will give me experience. Sure, I'm not getting paid money. However, let's say I get in the studio, I learn to engineer. That is a skill I now gain for free. I don't even have to pay for the skill because I'm learning. And that experience I can then use to turn into money. Because why would you charge for something that you're not actually good at? And the same thing goes for connections. For example, I might find a small artist. He doesn't have a whole lot of money. Hey, you know what? This one's on me. Or I'll take splits on the master, even though like he's probably not streaming that much. So it's not going to be a whole lot. But it will be worth it if the small artist is connected to bigger artists. First of all, he'll follow me on Instagram. So if I ever reach out to somebody else, they'll see that. And mutual followers are very beneficial. Second of all, I'll start releasing songs with that artist, and that will allow me to gain recognition and then leverage that to get to bigger and bigger artists. Same thing with songs. Like, for example, if I get to a big artist and he has way bigger songs than me, I know that it can be beneficial to do, like, I could just tell him like, hey, don't worry about it. You can get this first one for free or whatever. You don't need to pay me up front. I'll just take on the publishing, whatever. And you can say that you're only doing that for the first time. But then if you work with a big artist, that will make your brand so much stronger that you'll even have people reaching out to you, which you then can charge for. So when it comes to charging, if a collaboration does none of these things, like it doesn't give me better connections, it doesn't give me bigger songs, it doesn't give me experience, then I'll charge. And then what happens is that as you leverage the connections, releases, and experience that you have, fewer and fewer people will actually be able to give you better connections, bigger songs, and more experience than you already have. And then that means that you charge for all of that. So basically what you do is that it's a little bit of a short-term sacrifice, but for a long-term upside. Now, on that point of small artists comes lesson 7, which is that you don't want to get stuck with small artists. Because small artists, they have a cap. And the cap is that they can't afford high-priced beats. And then even if you take, as I mentioned in the example before, you take royalty splits on the master, like 20 to 30%, it doesn't really matter because their numbers are so low that you won't actually make any money from it. But of course, you want to start with small artists, but you don't want to stay there. And I did that mistake myself where I stayed with very small artists for a very long time. And then I made no progress because they made no progress. I made no money because they made no money. What I found works the best here is working with artists who are connected to bigger artists so that you can get to bigger opportunities. But also, as your brand gets stronger, move towards artists with real momentum. So what I mean by real momentum is artists with 100K to 200K monthly listeners. Because I've seen that when an artist has 100K to 200K monthly listeners, first of all, they're actually streaming, so you can get paid for it in different ways, shapes, or form. But they also have not enough of a proven demand to where you can actually help break that artist. That's been my most successful collaborations and the ones that brought in the most money, because then you're kind of locked in with this artist, you become their sonic identity, and you guys just keep working together, releasing songs, and they're all performing really well. And speaking of that, I actually want to put lesson 9 before lesson 8, or I want to cover it before lesson 8. I feel like sometimes we get so caught up in this hustle of trying to sell beats, sell beats, sell beats. But I would even say that we want to make songs, not beats. The way I see it is that beats are a tool because the goal of a beat is to become a song. And songs are where the money actually is because you can get paid upfront. Then you have the royalties on the master. Then you have the publishing royalties. There's so much money in a song. And the goal is, of course, for your beat to become a song. And that's why, for me, what's really been working well has been to work with artists with the output of making songs. Instead of just trying to sell a beat here, sell a beat there. Lock in with artists, make songs, and release those songs. Then, when you're doing that, it just becomes a game of, okay, how can I get better artists so that I can make better releases? And the final point on making songs and not beats is that songs build your brand more. Think of the biggest producers you know. Metro Boomin, Benny X, whoever, really. It's all because of the songs they made. Not that they sold beats, but because they made songs. And that's why, if you want to do this full time, it makes a whole lot of sense to make songs. Now lastly, I'll go back a little bit and wrap this whole video up with lesson 8, which is to take aggressive action. Because the opportunities that you need, they won't just show up. You literally have to create them. And you kind of have to force things into reality. So what that means is that you need to go ahead and send out the DMs and find people that you can network with. You need to get out of your room, get out of your comfort zone, go into the studios, go to the networking events, and take aggressive action in order for any of this to actually happen in the first place.